Not every nightmare happens when you're asleep. Sometimes they happen on quiet streets, in empty parking lots, or even in the safety of your own home. You're listening to They're Still Out. They're true stories from real people who saw the darker side of the world and lived to tell it. So turn down the lights and listen closely, if you dare. I was about 13 at the time, so that would mean this happened around 2009, I think. I'm bad at math. I was home alone one night when my parents went out somewhere. I think it was some work party or something. It involved alcohol, so they had to leave the car at home and take a taxi. I usually enjoyed being home alone at night. Mom would leave pizza money and I could play Xbox all night. It was Halloween break, so I didn't have any school to worry about. The good old days. I remember being in a bit of zombie phase because I spent most nights playing Left 4 Dead and COD 5 Zombies with my friends. Man, I'm telling you, pizza, snacks, a case of Dr. Pepper and gaming with the boys? Heaven. Well, something happened on one of these nights that messed me up pretty bad, to the point that even now, I always double-check doors and windows. I never wear both cans of a pair of headphones at once, and I am still petrified of the dark. That one ruined a few relationships. I was playing Xbox as usual all night, and I was already a bit jumpy. I was playing alone that night, so I wasn't talking to anyone. I was playing Left 4 Dead, and the music and sounds of the witch used to scare me a little. I was 13, shut up. So every dark corner and noise I heard was already freaky. I had my window open a bit, and I heard what sounded like someone walking up my gravel driveway. I thought it was my parents coming home, but when I looked outside, I couldn't see anyone. I remember just sitting in silence for a while with my game paused, trying to listen out for other sounds, but I didn't hear anything. It was only a few minutes later I heard the trash cans in my backyard falling over. I nearly jumped out of my skin. We didn't really get raccoons or anything, so I started to panic a bit. I looked out the window in the hallway out into my backyard. I couldn't see anything. The trash cans did fall over, but I didn't see raccoons, and it wasn't windy. It was raining a little, but that was it. I couldn't see the back door as the window looked down above the porch, and the porch roof blocked my view. There was definitely something happening. I went and stood at the top of my stairs and just stared into the darkness for I don't know how long, hoping that I didn't hear anything. All I could hear was the pitter-patter of the rain and my heartbeat in my ears. As I went to go back to my room, I heard it. Someone was trying the handle of the back door. I slowly made my way down my stairs and peeked around the corner and into the kitchen. The back door was wide open. My blood ran cold, and every hair stood on end. I knew I had to call the police, but the phone was on the wall next to the fridge, in the kitchen. In what was one of the stupidest decisions of my life, I started walking towards the kitchen. It felt like my hallway was 1,000,000 miles long. My mind was racing with possibilities of what was waiting for me. Was someone gonna grab me? Were they gonna just stab me or shoot me or something? Every single scenario played out in my head. In each one, I end up dead or worse. I finally made it to the kitchen. I tiptoed over to the phone. I lifted it and dialed 911. And that's when I heard it. "Aren't you supposed to be in bed, son?" A voice echoing from the back of the kitchen near the window. A low and gravelly voice. I threw down the phone and ran. I could hear the man running after me. I ran faster than I ever had towards my front door. As I got to it, it flung open. It was my parents. I ran into my dad's arms and managed to get out through the tears and panic that someone was in the kitchen. As I looked back towards the kitchen, the man went running through the back door again, and my dad ran after him. My dad came back a minute later and told my mom to call the cops. The cops asked me about what happened, but I couldn't give them a description as I couldn't see him in the darkness. They asked my dad where the guy ran off to, but my dad said that he jumped the fence and ran off into the trees. They never caught him. I've since moved into my own place and fitted every door and window with good quality locks. But while I still lived in my parents' house, every time I looked into those trees, I always felt like someone was watching me. There's a dispersed campground in Cougar, Washington. I won't say which turnoff it is from the main road because it may be very dangerous to camp in. Me and my family used to camp there all the time growing up. It was perfect to ride quads around and just an awesome place to get away to. Me being 26 now, I decided to go back to revisit childhood memories. Coming up on the turnoff, it was blocked off by a fence, so I parked and packed down the trail, walked through a small stream, and made it to the long dirt road that lead to the camp spots. Seems like people hadn't been there in years. Everything was so overgrown. The road signs were dirty, chipped, and rusty. I walked for at least an hour, until I found a campsite that wasn't overgrown, right next to the water near the end of the trail, actually, and I set up camp. The next step was the fire. I looked around for pieces of wood, twigs, and anything dry that could burn well for a good while, and thank God I was looking at the ground. If not, I might have stepped in a set bear trap. I just stuck a branch in it, snapping it closed because I didn't want another camper to step in it. That would have sucked for me and for anybody that far out in the wilderness. After gathering a good amount of fire fuel, I moved it all back to my campsite and started making a fire. The night was calm. The fire, crackling and dancing across the darkness, just behind the bushes and trees. The faint sound of the water rushing. Stars in the sky. It was truly a perfect night. I sat out there for hours. Must have been 2-3 a.m. when I decided to throw the rest of the wood on the fire and hunker down for the night. I crawled into my tent ready for a peaceful sleep. I fell asleep fairly fast and only got about an hour of sleep because a blood-curdling scream woke me up, and I wasn't sure that I actually heard that. I was groggy, but still on high alert. I can only compare the scream to a death whistle looking back now. I unzipped my tent and just stared out into the early morning dark blue light, the fire smoldering, listening intently. It was quiet aside from the birds chirping and the water in the distance. I put my shoes on and crawled towards the tent door to peek my head out and look around. Nothing. Just the woods. Reaching my hand forward, I felt cold metal and looked down. The trap I had set off yesterday was now just below my hand, set and ready to bite into me. What the fuck? Who the fuck? I thought. I hope anyone would have the flight instinct to get the hell out of there after seeing that, prank or not. I grabbed my car keys, my wallet and phone, and immediately started to leave up the road, a little faster than when I had came down, occasionally looking around to make sure I wasn't being followed. I eventually made it to the small creek and crossed it. My car was in sight, so I started to speed up, 40 feet away from the road. I heard heavy splashing in the creek behind me. I turned back and saw a middle-aged, rugged man who looked like he was on meth, holding a knife, wide-eyed and trudging through the creek at me thigh-deep. He was muttering something and seemed as if he was looking through me. I didn't waste any fucking time after that. I ran as fast as I could the rest of the way, scratched myself pretty good getting around the fence. I didn't fumble my car keys either. I was on point, turning on my car and looking into the woods. The man was now sprinting towards the fence and screaming at me. Just as I take off, he aggressively pushed through the small fence opening, stumbling onto the road. I looked in my rearview mirror at him as he stood up and chased after my car. He followed even up to the point where I bent around a corner. I notified the police and they said they'd check it out. I gave them everything I knew, told them where they could find my campsite, what happened, everything. If you do live in Cougar and decide to go camping in those backwoods, don't. I had always wanted to take a solo camping trip. I've watched countless hours of people doing them on YouTube, and after I had saved up some money, I decided to buy all the gear I needed and headed to the nearby national forest. It was a 5-hour drive to get there, so I set off just after dawn. I listened to a few podcasts and sang my heart out for the rest of the way. The time flew by, especially as I got closer to arriving. The views were breathtaking. The mountains rose from the ground, towering over me. It was almost a frightening sight, but the clear water and falling autumn leaves washed any fear away. I arrived at the parking area just after midday. It was pretty empty, mainly due to it being the middle of the week in October. There were 2 or 3 cars, but it seemed like I would be unlikely to run into anybody, which was fine by me. I'm not really one for people. I like to keep myself to myself, and I would prefer going for a walk surrounded by nature rather than be surrounded by obnoxious drunk people at a bar. I grabbed my backpack, which had pretty much everything I needed in it, and I started my hike into the forest. It was so peaceful. There was no sound of cars or machines, just birds chirping and the wind blowing through the leaves of the trees. The leaves danced to the beat of a non-existent drum, and I found myself just standing there, transfixed by them. Something flew straight past my head, startling me. My heart began to race. I looked up to see a small, elegant swallow perched on a branch. I chuckled to myself and continued on with my hike. After about an hour, I came to a clearing. A vast lake with crystal clear water stood in front of me. I looked out, taking in the majestic scenery. Something made me stop looking. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I had seen someone standing in the tree line about 50 yards back. Sharply turning around, I scanned the trees and couldn't see anything. It was probably another bird, I thought to myself. I hiked on for another few miles and found a small clearing. Huge trees towered over. Pretty orange and yellow leaves lay on the ground. It was as good a place as any, I thought. I grabbed the tent out of my large backpack and got to work setting it up. It was starting to get late by the time I had finished. I decided to make a fire and heat up some tomato soup that I had brought with me. Making the fire was easy. I had been camping with my father many times when I was younger. He would have loved this. The peaceful tranquility, surrounded by nature. He once said to me, "Jack, I feel at home in nature, and one day, so will you. It's in our blood." He was right. I had never felt more at home than I did sitting there with the fire lit, the sounds of the occasional birds, and the still calmness of the woods. I rustled through my bag and found my phone near the bottom. There was barely any signal out here, but just enough that I had received a message from my sister asking if I had made it safely. I texted her back and set the phone down beside me. It was a little after 10 o'clock, so I decided to turn in for the night. I had another big day of hiking tomorrow. I got into the tent and zipped it up. It was only small, just enough room for one person, but that was all I needed. I had my sleeping bag, a book to read, and a flashlight attached to the top of the tent. I read my book for a while and fell asleep with the book still in hand. I woke up abruptly. I didn't know what it was, but I had a bad feeling in my stomach, and shivers burrowed their way through my body. I reached next to me for my phone, but realized I had left it outside when I put it down earlier. I was about to get up and go out to find my phone when I saw a light coming from just inside the tent by the zip. I realized it was my phone. Maybe I had picked it up and it had slipped out of my pocket, I thought, trying to reassure myself. A minute later, the phone chimed. A new message appeared on the screen. It was from an unknown number. My hands began to tremble. I shakily unlocked my phone and opened the message. "I can see you. Why don't you come out and play?" My heart was thumping in my head. I was panicking. I didn't have any weapons with me. The best I could do was hit them with a flashlight, but that was not going to do much damage. I just sat there, not moving a muscle, trying to listen out for whether the person was nearby. Then a new wave of fear washed over me. He must have been in the tent. He picked up the phone and unzipped it. He had to be nearby, or he was before at least. I dialed 911 and told them my situation, making sure to whisper. They said they would dispatch someone immediately, but I knew it would take them hours to get here. The nearest police station was at least 2 hours away, and they would have to walk the rest of the way once they got here. After the call, another text came through from the same unknown number. "Don't be scared. The police won't find you, but I can help." I was whispering to the police. They must have been near the tent. I decided I had only one choice, try and outrun them. I am a pretty fit guy. I go to the gym and hike regularly, so I gave myself a good shot. But the fact of the matter was, I had no idea who this person was. They could have a knife, or, worse, a gun. But what choice did I have? I had no way of defending myself. I waited a while, trying to build up the courage. The person outside had gone quiet for now, but I knew they were still out there somewhere. I decided I would take my flashlight with me and could either use it as a weapon or maybe try and blind them with the light. I quickly unzipped the tent. I burst out of it and started running. I heard a yell from behind me, a deep, unsettling voice. As I was sprinting away, I turned and looked. The man was chasing me. He looked like he stood much taller than me and wider. He looked more like a bodybuilder from what I could see. I thought I had the edge on him due to being smaller, but he was surprisingly quick. I checked back again, and this time I could see a metal bat in his hand. He was gaining on me. My legs burned and were screaming at me in pain to stop. I ran and ran for as long as I could, just keeping away from him. It must have been a few miles before I saw the flashing blue and white lights of the police cruiser. I looked back, and the man chasing me had stopped. I couldn't see him anymore. I ran over to the police officers and pretty much collapsed on the floor. I told them what had happened, and they radioed for more units. They put me in the back of the police cruiser and waited for backup. After what seemed like an eternity, 2 other cruisers pulled up and I was taken back to the station. I had already given my statement while waiting, but they just wanted to confirm a few details back at the station. That was a few days ago. I was so relieved to get back and relax. I have never been so scared in my life. I think my heart only just stopped racing. They haven't found the guy yet. They searched the whole forest with no luck. I am back at home now, but I just realized he had my phone outside the tent. He could know where I live. It's nighttime now. I just called the police, but I heard a thud downstairs. I live alone,